Among the most influential and acclaimed figures in the history of jazz and 20th century music, he adapted a variety of musical directions in a 5-decade career that kept him at the forefront of many major stylistic developments in jazz.
This week on our countdown, we're at number 49. The album is Miles Davis, Birth of the Cool. It's a compilation album. It was released on the Capitol label on LP and CD. It was recorded in 1949 and 1950. Birth of the Cool. So, Drew, tell me, how was your week in music?
Well, this week I didn't have a whole lot of notes written down. It's the first week and a half of the new year, so welcome to 2025, everybody. I've been writing 2024 on everything, as you do all the time. I did write 2004 on something the other day, so I'm a few decades off. But with that being said, it's time for a new look, a new page, like Miles Davis. It's time for a new sound. Not sure what that's going to be or what direction that heads, but it's time for a new bit of noise. What about y'all? What's your music been like listening this week?
Well, let me say that I was on Spotify for a good bit of the early part of the week, and I was listening to the Brecker brothers, Mike Brecker.
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, and that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that, and then I found Art Blakey. Do we know Art Blakey?
yes, we do.
Yes.
And the Jazz Messengers, and I was eating that up. I was all over that, and I guess the Big Beat was the album that I was listening to.
Okay.
Art Blakey. I really was. I got into that, and I listened to it quite a lot this week. The Jazz Messengers.
We haven't covered Blakey yet, but
we know the Jazz Messengers because of so many people, like the Max Roach. We did that, but haven't touched Blakey yet.
Nope.
I thought maybe you guys would be familiar with the Jazz Messengers anyway. I think I've heard that.
Oh,
heard that.
We are, just because of people like Chuck Mangione and Wynton and so many others that have come through that school, that camp of education.
Yeah, I think we talked about it on a couple episodes ago. If you made it through Blakey's school or Blakey's band, you pretty much write your own ticket to the jazz scene. So
yeah, who are we talking about?
Well,
it doesn't matter right now.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Well, so my week, we got Miles on the front end and Miles on the back end. So it was a banging week for me because I put some of the stuff that I like to listen to right in the middle. So it was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for sure. But yeah, I'm looking forward to starting the discussion tonight because it's funny because while I was doing my research for the slideshow, I didn't realize that this was a compilation album until just a couple of nights ago when I was building the slideshow. I kept looking at his discography and thinking, okay, it's 57 right here. Where is Birth of the Cool? And they've got it listed as, solo work and then compilations down below. So it took me a hot minute.
Well, you'll have to actually go to Classics in Jazz, 1954. That was the first release of that album with 8 tracks on it, and it was actually not called Birth of the Cool. Classics in Jazz. We'll get into some of that history, I'm sure, but it blew me away because why is it a compilation? We've done Count Basie's, we've done Coleman Hawkins, we've done so many others, and I was listening to Clifford Brown album that was a complete MRC maybe, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is a compilation, but why? And I wanted to ask questions about that as we get a little bit closer. Why did it take 10 years almost for the album to actually come out? And when it finally did get released in 57, it was renamed Birth of the Cool. And that's interesting. If you think about 49, that was not the Birth of the Cool. So was Miles just 10 years ahead of its time? Is that part of his greatness? So I pondered that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they
Classics
did
and-
too. It was recorded in 49, and then, well, they did 3 different recording sessions.
Yeah.
Two in 49 and 1 in 50.
Yeah.
And then it took until 1957 to put out the album. But the funny part
Yeah.
is, well, yeah, the funny part is he put out 3 other albums that year. So
And,
He-
in between January 21st and April 22nd of 49, he was out touring with
Charlie Parker,
Charlie Parker.
he was out. Yep,
So,
he was out touring.
so I happened to listen to some of that earlier today too, because why not? What's 1945 hard bop like for Miles Davis?
Yeah.
And that was who he wanted to play with. He went and chased down Diz and Bird.
Yeah.
So do we do the audio first, Dad, or do we go into the slideshow?
Let's do some audio. Let's roll some sounds.
All right. Well, I'm going to be selfish and take the first pick then.
Take it.
All right. My pick is song number 4 off this album. It's Venus de Milo. And I am going to start right about 30 seconds. I love the head, the melody of this tune. But I want to get into a little more. So here we go. Okay, so the reason that I picked that is because there's a dang tuba playing in that on the whole compilation. There's a tuba playing, and you got to really listen. You got you got to concentrate on the bass line, the double bass. You know, running his boom 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 boom, and then the bass of the tuba. The note that I made was, well, it's an earworm first of all, but it's cool all the way through. The Venus de Milo is cool all the way through. So, not that it's the first birth of the cool, but for me, that song is just cool all the way. And for them to, we'll talk about the artists here in a little bit and what they played, but yeah, that one hit me. It was song number 4, Venus de Milo. Who wants to go next? Drew, you want to go next, or you want me to play Dad's clip?
Dad.
All
Okay.
right.
I've chosen Jeru. Let's start at somewhere around 2:15.
2:15.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Very cool.
All right.
Very stylistic. Had a swing kind of feel to it, and I could picture the orchestra on stage with folks just out on the platform dancing, and so it kind of brings you into it. It speaks like, let's get to it. Let's get down and let's enjoy this music.
Well, and I think Miles on this album, Miles Davis, he's got an impeccable style on this album. You know, we laugh. Drew and I laugh all the time. We laugh because even though he's great, he's one of the greatest. He's not a great trumpet player. In my opinion, I won't speak for Drew, but in my opinion, he's not one of the greatest trumpet players. He's very inventive, very creative, very outspoken, very jazzy. But on this album in particular, and I listened very hard at Miles this week, very, very hard, very with a discerning ear. And again, hey, I'm just going to take a time out. We're using JazzWise magazine's 2022 list, the 100 albums that shook the world. the name of our channel is The Unconnoisseurs. We don't know everything. We're still learning. We're on our journey together, and we're still learning. But this week with Miles, I was very particular about how I listened to the album consciously and with a goal in mind. Not to pick him apart, but to enjoy it and to discern the bad from the good. In my opinion, he was all good on this album. He's all good. All right. Sorry, I went on a rant there. You guys are just sitting there, but I went on a rant.
That was a good minute of time. That
It is important to think about that. You know, we get to listen and nitpick about a lot of different music, and some of it is just purely nitpicking. Things that we appreciate, things that we didn't, things that we picked up on, things that we don't. Just like I'm about to say my song, and then I have to look down and realize that we all picked Jerry Mulligan compositions and arrangements. The song that I originally wanted to do was Boplicity. And the reason I wanted to talk about Boplicity is that he chose as the composition name Cleo Henry instead of Miles Davis, because then as Cleo, he could do it on a different album later. Cleo Henry, Cleota May Davis was Miles's mother. So if you look for somebody who composed music under Cleo Henry, a.k.a. Miles Davis. Now, that was Miles Davis and Gil Evans' arrangement, but the song that I want you to play for me, I want to hear Rocker, and I've said that we could start it right at about 2:20 as we get into Jerry Mulligan's solo, and then we move into the actual head of the song. But again, things that we notice. Yeah. Why did we all gravitate towards Jerry Mulligan compositions on this compilation album? Yeah. So, I don't know. We just did. I don't know
either. Yep, we sure did. All right, let me get you started at 2:20. Here we go. You got the longest clip.
Yeah.
I just let it play till the very end of the song.
Because it was almost there.
Yep.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love most about that particular track, first of all, the Barry sax. You know, we listened to him and Chet Baker a month ago. But how often is it that you hear a baritone saxophone just wailing like that? Now, there's some great baritone sax players, but it just stands out to me that he's written it. He's got the feature in it at the end. Everybody had their own solos in the whole song, but to me, it's just beautifully done. Beautifully done.
Yep. I agree. I agree 100%.
Can I add something to one of the pieces of music that I heard this week? I go back to this. It's done by John Clayton, and it's called The Walking Bass.
Yeah, you sent me that.
Did I? Yeah.
Yes.
It's so cool. Very cool. Anyway.
So Dad, your clip, Jeru, I don't know if you remember this or not, but Jeru was the nickname that Miles gave
Jerry Mulligan.
Jerry Mulligan. So on Mulligan Week, which was 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks ago, we covered Jeru, covering Jerry Mulligan. So that's the second time that, we played a clip from Jeru.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of them was on the Jerry Mulligan Quartet with Chet Baker, and then this week Miles had it on his compilation album. So that was a good pick. I liked your pick a lot, and I just thought I'd interject that.
So do I get a second pick then?
Well, no. I love you, but no. The thing that we covered during that week was they're hanging out at Gil Evans' house at his apartment down on 55th Street. They were all, or 52nd Street down the way. So we talked a lot about that during Jerry Mulligan, understanding who was hanging out in that house, which is essentially, pardon me, this group right here. The arrangements by Gil, Jerry being on it. There were 3 names that were consistent on all 3 of the recordings. But the biggest thing that always hit me was that all of them came out of Claude Thornhill's big band.
Yep.
And as I nitpicked these songs this week, to me, this was a swing band with a slow tempo. Mm-hmm. You weren't going to get out and do your fast dancing like Thornhill or Duke or Basie. You're not going to get out there and swing like the 40s, but it was recorded right at the end of the 40s, which had been that big band era. And we've talked about the departure of that for all the reasons. Now all of a sudden, they put that big band together with very limited instruments. And they talk a lot about that throughout the wiki pages and Miles's pages. So it is pretty cool to listen to a slowed down version of a big band with nonette.
9 players. Yep.
9 players. And you've got trombones, tuba, French horn, baritone saxophone, add in the alto and the trumpet, drums, bass, and piano. I mean, you're bringing big sound with a small group of people. And that stands out to me.
Yeah.
You want to get to the slideshow?
Sure. Let's do it. All right. So just like always, first slide, I say it every week. Whatever you do, do it to jazz. We do. Trust me, we do. Do it to jazz. But this week, Miles Davis, Birth of the Cool. Moving on to the next slide. I like the cover art. And I will tell you, if you're on iTunes and you pull up Birth of the Cool, the cover art changes. It's got a moving cover art, which is really cool. I think it's one of the only ones that I've seen or remembered that's got a rotating or a moving cover art on iTunes. So it captures Miles. It captures the essence of Miles. What do you think? What do you think of the artwork?
Personally, like the album cover from the Classic Jazz, which was the, 1957 release of it, 1954. Okay. But this is a great picture. I mean, it really does stand out. Cool.
Yeah.
Birth of the Cool Miles Davis. It took me a while to find an image where I could see what was on the bottom right-hand corner. Uh-huh. Every screen capture I found, it was kind of blurry, but it's just the song titles.
Uh-huh. Yep.
What I do appreciate about this particular compilation from Capitol is it does have Darn That Dream, the vocal song.
The vocal song, yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Dad, what about you?
Yeah, I liked it. Basic, what I saw is black and white.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
But then Birth of the Cool, and the album I have, Cool is in red letters, which would indicate something hot, not blue, but red would symbolize something really hot here that kind of draws you into it, really.
Yeah. That I like. Yep. Great descriptive words. I like it a lot. All right. Moving on to the next slide. I picked a couple of pictures of Miles. He's very recognizable. He's just got a look. He is pretty cool in my opinion. Top left, it's an older picture, him wailing away on the trumpet. I put a quote in there from passionforjazz.net. It's not the notes you play, it's the notes that you don't play that make you cool. we could discuss it for the next hour, but yeah, I just thought that was an interesting quote by Miles. It's not the notes you play, it's the notes you don't play. The lower left is a cool drawing picture that I found on Reddit. I forgot to get the name of the artist, so if that's your work, thank you for your work. I appreciate it. I didn't do it, but I found it on Reddit. Captures Miles' essence with the sunglasses kind of hunched over in the Miles trumpet pose. Bottom right, color picture, him in his older years. I mean, what do you say? He's cool looking. I think he's cool looking.
He's recognizable.
He's recognizable. Oh, Dad, you can't see the slides. Dang it! I'm sorry. Next week, I'll print them out and mail them to you in the mail.
It's okay.
Oh, that's bad. I'll chisel them out in a stone tablet so you can understand it. You're bad.
Oh, that's horrible.
Sorry. Yeah, I picked him because I liked him. That's why I picked the pictures, because I liked him. You know, love him or hate him. How can I put this? Love him or hate him, I'm still kind of in the middle with Miles. Me personally.
Both of my notes, when I started to write down Miles Davis stuff, I still struggle with it today, almost 2 years after writing these first notes down. What makes him so great? And is it just because he was able to adapt to all the generations? Or my question is, if he recorded Birth of the Cool or Classics in Jazz in 49, this was long before cool jazz was cool jazz. Mm-hmm. And so Birth of the Cool, aptly named, 8 years later, after the first recording was done, and they decided, oh yeah, we might as well call this Birth of the Cool. Well, it's kind of fitting. How many other genres did he jump into before jazz did? So he's leading the way again. And I always make that. After watching and hearing Zero Gravity, this was my note. Hearing about the greats that played with or for Miles, and hearing how bad he wanted Wayne in the quintet, you start thinking about, was it the youngsters in Miles's quintets? Was it in the group? Was it the fact that he had Jerry Mulligan writing all of and composing all of it, or Gil Evans writing for him, that made Miles great? Or was it just purely the fact, like we talked about, that he just put everybody together? I'm glad we're all dialoguing about what we could do for music as he sits at 55th Street and says, why don't we just do it? Let's get a recording session going and do it. And they did. So as a leader, is that what makes him great? Or is it his trumpet playing? So, yeah.
I'm sure one of our listeners will school us, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Jazz lingo for the day. The word that I picked today, hipster. A slang term that was used in the 1940s that referred to a jazz aficionado, someone who knows or understands a lot about jazz. Now, we're called the unconnoisseurs. We're not the non-aficionados, but we're on our journey learning about jazz. So are we on our way to being hipsters? I think so.
One day.
Yeah, one day.
It's interesting. The word hipster was, I remember it from when I was in school, high school. We often would use the term, somebody's a hipster, without knowing the connotation, without knowing the connection to jazz. But it was popular to be a hipster, meaning you could swing, you could get involved, you could get engaged with and participate in community. You were really hip.
Yeah,
and you identified music that was hip in the mid '60s, early '60s to '70s. You were a hipster.
Yeah, but then that word came back around in the '80s and the '90s because everything was hip back then.
Yeah,
oh, man, that's so hip. That's cool. That's hip. I like it.
Yeah.
It's hip to be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hip to be square.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah. Hip to be square. Huey Lewis in the News.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's just an interesting term, interesting jazz term. That's why I picked it. Plus, on the slideshow on the next slide. Yeah, let's move on to the next slide. Where you can get it. This week's album can be found on iTunes, Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, LP, and CD. And again, I put another quote by Miles up there. If you're trying to be hip, be hip. Don't be a drip. I added that.
That's
I don't know.
awesome.
Yeah, it's a good quote from Miles. I liked it. So that's why I picked it. Let's move on to the to the information slide. So, of course, this week we're talking about Miles Davis. Miles was born in 1926, passed away in 1991. That made him 65 years old when he passed away. In his autobiography, he lists these influences: Elwood Buchanan and Joseph Gustat. Now, I don't know who those cats are, but if they influence Miles, they got to be, they got to be pretty cool, pretty hip. So I didn't do any rabbit holing to learn about those guys. I did run a quick wiki page search on Elwood Buchanan, but unfortunately, it's a college football player, and there was no information about anything else for Elwood. Miles has 60 studio CDs. He's got 39 live CDs and 46 compilations. 106, 140, 146. That's like 150 albums from Miles. It doesn't include, well, the compilations include his side work, but I mean, come on, that's a lot to ingest. He worked hard. He really did. I mean, I don't know. I'm still on the fence. The genre that I listed, you could put all kinds of genres for Miles: jazz and fusion, hard bop. He didn't really get into the avant-garde too much. He got into the soul, man, in the 70s. He got into that soul jazz. He really did.
Modal jazz.
Modal jazz. Yeah. You just about anything else but free jazz and avant-garde you could list for Miles, because he, like Drew said, he spun the genres and he changed his music to fit what people were going to listen to. So, I don't know. I could have listed all the genres, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go back up to your influences right quick. Buchanan, Elwood C. Buchanan Sr., 1907 to 1990, was in St. Louis, Missouri. He was Miles's teacher from an early age. He happened to be one of Miles's dad's patients. Dad was a dentist, right?
Yep.
Elwood was trained by Joseph Gustat, who was the principal trumpeter at the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. And so those two were very instrumental in bringing up Dewey Davis in the trumpet.
Dewey. Yeah, Dewey. That's his middle name.
Miles Dewey Davis.
Yep, Miles Dewey. Moving on to the known for. I don't know if he's known for this, but I just found it an interesting fact. His first trumpet was a gift from John Eubanks. I just thought it was interesting. We talked about Wynton sitting around with his dad's friends around the table, and who gives him the horn? Not Clark Terry.
Clark Terry did.
Clark Terry.
No, it wasn't Clark Terry. Clark and Al Hurt. Were sitting at Ellis Marsalis's house, and Al Hurt brings him a trumpet, which he didn't play for 3 years.
Right. So Miles got his first trumpet as a gift as well. Miles was also friends with Clark Terry, and they had a kind of lifelong friendship going. And
they did.
The more that you read about Clark Terry, and I'm reading his autobiography now.
Good.
What a great book. I mean, like you say, you could spend just 10 or 15 minutes reading a chapter and put it down for a day or two and not feel like you're missing anything. But man, it's so informative. So informative. So Miles and Clark were lifelong friends. Miles has a 5-decade career. He had been playing jazz for over 50 years. I mean, that's a long time to do anything, but he loved it. Music was his first love. I read that wiki page. He was into music from the time he was 12, time he was 13. He knew that this is what he's going to do. So he was in it for the life. Move on to just some facts about Birth of the Cool. This was his 4th album that was released in 1957. Now, like we said earlier, he didn't record these in 57, so it's not like he was working that hard. I guess he was still working hard, but the 4th album in 57, so he's a hard worker. I mean, I put a question mark behind this statement, but start of Cool Jazz, Mulligan's album came out in 53 with Chet Baker. That's kind of West Coast cool right there.
That's why I bring up it was recorded in 1949. And it wasn't just like late 49, early 50. It was January 21st of 49 when the first 4 songs were recorded, April 22nd, 49, and then March 9th of 1950. Why did it take them so long to release the album? And it really would have then been the birth of the cool movement of jazz. If Capitol would have actually released them in 50, this was 3 years before anybody else was really hammering down. Now, that's not to say that what we don't know, we don't know. They were already, Stan Getz was doing cool jazz. Chet Baker was already there doing cool jazz. There was a movement to it, but definitely not with a nonette. And so, yeah, if it came out in 57, it was behind the curve for cool jazz. And Capitol looks at it and says, well, okay, I think we should. Now, the albums in of themselves, there were 4 songs released early on. And I don't have that, had that in front of me, and I just turned the page. But there were 2 records that came out. Both had, there were 2 sides to them. So it would have been Jeru, Move, Godchild, and Budo on one record. So that was released earlier in like 52. And then 54, they put 8 tracks on it and called it the Classics in Jazz. But it wasn't until 57 that they did it all. So is it the beginning? I agree with your slide. It's not a question anymore. I think he started cool jazz. He started cool jazz for the record labels. It may have already been played. How's that sound?
I like it.
The record labels pick up on it and go, oh man, if he's doing that, maybe we should.
I like it.
Now, I do want to mention one note. Pete Rugolo was the one who said to Capitol in 57, you need to put the whole thing out. This whole album, and he was with a different record label at the time, he said you need to put this album out. So it was under his persuasion that Capitol finally released it under the name Birth of the Cool. Pete Rugolo, you go look into his name, he's a major composer, piano, but what always strikes to me is what did he write for? And on a side note, 1957 and 1962, he composed for Leave It to Beaver. So he did so many television shows between 51 and 97, but Leave It to Beaver was one of them I thought I would just bring out.
Oh, that's cool. What a great...
So he went to Capitol and said, you need to push this out. Get it out. Thanks to them in 57, we have Birth of the Cool.
Yeah. So, all right, last 2 little things I'm known for. Miles, Lee Konitz, Jerry Mulligan, and Bob Barber were the only musicians to play on all of the recordings. Bill Barber, not Bob.
Bill,
I was thinking of Bob Barker, but Bill Barber. Those were the only musicians that played on all of the recording sessions, all 3 of the recording sessions. So the others were picked for their specific sound for different recording sessions. And then they did an RVG, Rudy Van Gelder remix in the 2000s and let Rudy do his thing to it. Now, I didn't hear the RVG edition. At least I don't think iTunes has it. I could be wrong. I mean, I've been wrong once today already, so it wouldn't surprise me if I was wrong. But I was looking for the RVG edition on iTunes. I just couldn't find it. Or maybe the edition that I have is RVG, but whenever iTunes does it, they make sure to put this is a Van Gelder edition. No 6 degrees this week because we're talking about Miles Davis. That's a 0 degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question. Unless I read it wrong, this album was a gathering of these musicians without practice, and they just started playing, and they had the sheet music in front of them, and then they began to record. Is that...
You sent that information before. I think that was Kind of Blue.
Okay.
And I don't think that is Birth of the Cool.
Okay.
I meant to go back over that and double check that beforehand.
Kind of Blue. Yeah.
But Kind of Blue. Okay. Birth of the Cool, having all of the pieces that you do in the arrangements, I can't imagine that you're going to go in there and sight read this music to that quality.
Yeah.
Now, you could, but I don't think that was this album, Matt.
No, I don't think so either. And Giroux they had played before anyways. So, but then like you said, bringing in those different voicings, and then you got to have someone say, "Hey, tuba, back off right here. Hey, bass, yeah, we need a little bit more of you. Alto, back off right here." So I can imagine that they probably didn't rehearse a lot, but they would have a score in front of them. That's what I imagine.
So one of the things that I want to mention about that is it could have been because Charlie Parker, where Miles had been playing prior to this album and even during the recording of this, Charlie Parker really didn't ever rehearse his stuff either. He walked in and demanded that people play. And so it could be from that school that Miles gets his idea just to throw the music down and say, let's record. You also get the true vibrancy of the musicians playing. It's almost as a live album could be, because this is the first time we're making this up. So I'll do some digging. I'll put a correction up if I'm right or wrong. Either way, but I do remember that as one of the albums, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find it on Kinda Blue, but I don't see that information right there.
Good.
But just a quick post-production update. I wanted to include this information. It was the album Kinda Blue. From Wikipedia, it states, as was Davis's penchant, he called for almost no rehearsal, and the musicians had little idea what they were to record. It goes on to say, once the musicians were assembled, Davis gave brief instructions for each piece and then set to taping the sextet in studio. While the results were impressive, with so little preparation, the persistent legend that the entire album was recorded in one pass is untrue.
That's a good point, though, Dad, that you bring up. We get, and I've said it before, but we get the gold at the end of the rainbow. We don't see all of the hard work that went in, in 49 and 50 to record this stuff and getting everyone to. All right, that was before they had cell phones. You had to be near a phone or have your agent or your manager near a phone all the time. Miles calls up and says, I need you in the studio, man, right now. Let's get over here because we're going to do some recording. You didn't have cell phones. You didn't have pagers. How did you get to the studio? How did you know when everyone was supposed to be there? Well,
it's like Duke reaching out to Clark Terry. Hey, swing by the suit shop. They'll get you set up. Well, how did you get a hold of him? I called him at the recording studio. How'd you know he was at the recording studio? Because I called his house. Well, how somebody at the house gave you the number? They'll track you down.
Yeah.
I mean, other than knock, 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 can Philip come out and play? You knock on the doors, but 447-7490. Call that phone number, 447-2986. You had to have those phone numbers memorized to survive.
But again, I'm thinking in today's technology, you text everyone, hey, we're going to rehearse tomorrow at 6:00 and then record, Thursday at 3:00. They wouldn't have been able to do that back then. So
No.
That's a good point that you brought up, Dad. Thanks for bringing that up. It's a good point. Let's finish off slideshow, or at least
one of the
slideshow.
One of the things that I want to put on known for here, in '82, this was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. So I had that written down. I want to make sure that I put that note out there.
Cool.
So now we can move on.
Today in jazz history, today is January the 15th. Today, drummer Gene Krupa was born in 1909. So happy birthday, Gene. Jerry Mulligan, Giroux, records What Else Is There to Say with Art Farmer in 59. So, of course, we're talking about, Jerry Mulligan on this album. But, yeah, in 59, 2 years later, he records with Art Farmer. Trumpeter Baikita Carroll was born in 1947. So I hope I'm saying Baikita right. But anyways, happy birthday, Baikita. One final quote from Miles. It's a cool picture. Good music is good no matter what kind of music it is.
There you go.
He had a lot of good quotes. He wasn't afraid to be outspoken. Whether he
No.
whether he was right or wrong, he wasn't afraid to be himself. Wasn't afraid to speak his mind. So
Yep.
good music is good music.
For sure.
What kind of music it is, even if it's music that you don't like.
I've been waiting for that to come out somewhere.
All right.
But and I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is no matter what kind of music it is.
Yeah.
If it appeals to you, it appeals to you. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Right.
By Keita Carroll. Did you dig into the trumpeter?
Come
By
on.
Keita?
No.
I thought that you would have, because he served in the U.S. Army in 1965, the 3rd Infantry Division Band,
Yes.
stationed in Wurzburg, Germany.
Mm-hmm.
So he played in the band. Now, I looked at him because heavily influenced by Clark Terry and Lee Morgan. I'm gonna start a little slideshow off to the side. The 6 Degrees of Clark Terry.
Very.
It sounds like. Are we online here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It sounds like you have a love affair with Clark Terry, like your brother has with some other a female artist.
I think that Clark will continue to be a heavy influence in my playing style.
Yeah.
His showmanship, his sound, his personal desire to teach and educate, working with the future jazz musicians. To me, Clark is that. And he's got a beautiful sound. And I know that Maria Schneider does too. And
Yeah.
when you listen to that music, and when you've had an opportunity to go see live, yeah, you're going to, yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, what was the first word that Drew said about Clark Terry? Showmanship.
Showmanship.
Does that fit your brother here? Does that fit?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, for sure. Yep.
He can be quite a showman, can
Yep.
he? Did you just put me out?
Did you have anything to add to the slideshow, Drew? Did you have?
I did. I'm going to do that. I've got 2 quick slides I want to go over, because this is the interesting part about the history. Do you go to 1949? Do you go to 1950 or 1957? Few more albums that were released out of like 60. Kenny Burrell, All Day Long.
Okay.
John Coltrane's Blue Train came out.
Oh,
J.J. Johnson, Blue Trombone. Somebody you sent me earlier this week, Hank Mobley, in the Hank Mobley Quintet. The album, Brilliant Corners by Thelonious Monk. Max Roach, Jazz in 3/4 Time. And The Tenor Giants by Ben Webster came out in 57.
well,
You know, this 50, go ahead.
you got Roundabout Midnight too from Miles. You got
Yep.
Miles Davis plus 19.
Yeah, a lot of music was dumped in 1957. The next slide that I have, because do you cover 57, 50, or 49? In 1949, the first Festival International de Jazz is held in Paris, and it featured Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Sidney Bechet, Miles Davis, Kenny Clark, and others. June 24th of 1949, the first television Western airs on NBC, and it's Hopalong Cassidy. August 3rd, the Basketball Association of America and the National Basketball League finalized the merge, and it's now known as the National Basketball Association, 1949.
Wow.
A couple of things from 1950. May 25th of 1950, the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel is formally open to traffic in New York City. The only reason I want to bring that up is that Men in Black, the first film, the headquarters is located in one of the ventilation towers. So the beginning of MIB is a ventilation tower of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. And then October 2nd of 1950, the comic strip Peanuts by Charles Schwartz is first published in 7 U.S. newspapers.
Oh my goodness.
So there's your time in history, 1949 and 1950.
Pretty impressive, I'll tell you.
I realize how long ago that was, and I'm not even going to say that I'm old because I got somebody older than me. I got somebody's older than me. I'm like Brady Bunch. I'm looking to the upper left and the upper right.
I was going to say that in 1949, I was 3 years old. Okay. 1957, you can imagine I would have been 11. Yeah. Thank you for calling that out, Drew. You've been so good to me.
So, all right, let's dive for a few minutes on Birth of the Cool, or dive back into it. In my notes this week from last year when we did it, I didn't make a whole lot of notes, but some of the notes that I made was it was great melody. Song number 1 has a great head. It's got a great melody to it. There's some weird chord structures and instrumentation on number 3. Now, this is before I'm digging into it at all. Before first time listen, just how does it make you feel? What do you think? The cool West Coast sound on song number 4, and the drums are kind of in the background. And then I highlighted song number 12, the vocals on 12, which seemed odd to me because the other 11 songs are the non-ep without the vocals, and then almost like an afterthought they threw, oh, well, hey, let's throw this one in there. It's cool vocal. I don't know. Those are the notes that I made. I also said I'm not sure I'll go back to this in a year from now and listen to the album again. Birth of the Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, out of the vast Miles library, I'm not sure Birth of the Cool is going to be one that I run back to.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird because I know that silence is speaking. It's sometimes the notes that you don't play that are just as loud as the notes that you do. Mm-hmm. And I would have to agree. I didn't write that as a note, but even coming back now to record this episode, I don't know that I wasn't pleased with it. It's a pleasing sound. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of great creative things that took place on the album. But it did take a major development to shift the direction of music. You think about Mulligan leaving, and now he's out with Chet Baker on the West Coast doing the cool jazz thing. You think about Bill, and where did he go? And all these other players that have come through this group, where did they go? What music did they produce? How many of them left and became great in and of themselves? And I think that that's the major thing. How many of them went on to do cool jazz or just went back into the third stream into orchestra? Miles was also coming out of a 3-year stint with Charlie Parker. And I can't imagine what it's like to blow a horn next to Charlie Parker. Fast and rapid, and it's that hard bop sound before hard bop was hard bop. That was the sound, and so I think this was a big, deeper breath. And that's kind of how I end up saying it. It's just I can relax a little bit and listen to it. It's probably, I'm not ever going to use the term background music, but it's something that I can listen to and not really pay attention. But when you do, the sounds of the tuba and the French horn, the wall of music that hits you, it is really deep and powerful. But it doesn't have to be loud and obnoxious to be deep and powerful. So, yeah, there was a lot going on with that. And I also that year did First Miles and Blue Period and Dig and Miles Quintet and ESP and Bitches Brew and Decoy and Tutu. I mean, Miles in the Sky and Sorcerer. I did a lot of other music listening. And we're also listening to a particular album this week of Miles. So,
yeah.
I have a. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say. I'm just asking. What was your overall opinion?
Well, I have a quote that I found. Davis used his trumpet as a way to emulate the sound of the human voice by cutting out vibrato, turning his jazz into a smoother and more emotional form of music. And I wonder. Matt, maybe that is what you were responding to, because we're used to hearing a more harder, a more not richer, but the playing and the movement of the fingers and the notes and stuff, and so this is not that at all. Not that he couldn't play that, but he did not play real hard trumpet.
And you know who told him to take out the vibrato? CT.
Okay.
Yep.
Clark Terry told him.
Okay.
Lose the vibrato.
Yeah.
And so Miles was focusing on a broader, richer tone. He wanted it to be rounder instead of either wobbly or flat. So, good point. Good point.
It's interesting now that you mention that, Dad, because in the years to come with Davis, you do play less notes. We talk about that. How little does he play into the future? And it is about leaving space. With Wayne Shorter coming up, how much in what, another decade and a half, in 64 when the second quintet starts, 64 to 69, how little do they all play? When Ron and Wayne and Miles get together with that group, how quiet is it? And of course, Sonny Rollins, Red Garland, and Paul Chambers with Philly Joe Jones on the first quintet, they play a little more, but Miles slowly begins to play less and less in all of his music. And it almost makes me wonder, if I just spent a year listening to every single Miles album in order, would you begin to hear him settle into the right notes and silence? So that's his voicing. Man, Miles is like a conundrum wrapped in a bag of question marks, isn't he?
Yeah. He's like,
what makes him so great?
He's like wasabi wrapped in bacon.
Ooh, I like some of that.
Bacon, definitely.
All right, I'm ready to rate the album.
Yeah.
Are you ready to rate? All right,
Yes.
Dad?
Yeah, Dad, go first.
Here's where I am, and I've not settled completely, but somewhere between 7.5 and 8.
Word.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. That's hip. I like that. That's cool. That's a good score.
Yeah, that's where I am.
Okay, so my score, the last year when we did it, my score is an 8.5. And again, not really any explanation needed. I couldn't go necessarily to 9, but 7 for Miles was a little too low for me. So I'm stuck right at 8.5.
You know, as we get into our personal feelings of the albums and the ratings each week, it is tough because it is personal. This is what I think about the album. It's definitely 49 on the list. I think there's a couple more Miles Davises coming. I'm sure there's going to be one in the top 5 as well. Miles is a great musician. He's done some great things. It's tough to say that I want to give it a low score because it is Miles Davis. And we started, 20 weeks ago with the 6 Degrees of Miles just because so many names have crossed paths with Miles. It became a game for us, and now it's part of our channel every week. And Miles' greatness. I, a year ago, gave this album an 8.5. That's how I felt about the album. I wasn't so blown away, but I'm not going to change. I would never change my score because we won't, but I can't go any lower because we have taken a bigger grasp of some of Miles's work and the direction. Now, just as far as the album in general, period. 8.5.
Okay. All right. I could be persuaded to a 9, though. Even though in my notes a year ago it said I wouldn't come back to the album, or I may not come back to it. Now that I'm back into it, I'm glad I'm back into it. Hearing this version of Miles as opposed to later in his career where he does play less notes and he plays them all wrong. But
at least he's not playing through pantyhose.
it's true. Okay. Yeah, cool. Dad, that's a great score.
It's weird because, Dad, it is a great score. I could look at it as a big band sound and probably change my opinion of what it is. Because everything that you read about it, it's got Claude Thornhill written all over it. I don't know who that is. I don't know the sounds of Claude Thornhill. I know Woody Herman. I know Count Basie and Duke Ellington, but that's not Claude Thornhill. And if all of these musicians came out of his school, then yeah, everybody that writes, it's Claude Thornhill. I haven't studied Claude Thornhill.
Nope.
But I do know that what a big band sounds like from swing days would be just this. And from a swing band album or a big band album, I would rate that pretty high.
Yeah.
I can't shake my booty to it. It's not fast enough to be jazz. jazz. And it's not slow enough to be a slow dance, but yeah, that's just my final thoughts on it.
Yeah, we talked about Coker's book, and again, I know I'm repeating myself, and I think it's a good thing to repeat some of these things, but the craftsmanship is there for us. The awareness of the other musicians is there. The creativity is definitely there, especially knowing that it's 1949 and 1950 before cool jazz. So the creativity, the spirit of the album, that's kind of, it's hard. It's hard to discern that for me, but the emotion, the one that really got me, it's the emotional part for me. So cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and introduce next week's artist. How about that?
Can I say something before?
Please do.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I understand that, Miles is a short man, like 5'7" or something. So it's surprising he's able to. He really blows some really good stuff through that horn, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you read that he had a condition where he could confuse you. He would see a number and see a color.
Say what?
Yes, it's called. Let me read the word. Synesthesia. Synesthesia. And that's where his brain switches from what he sees to what he hears, from what he hears to what he can taste. And the brain has the switch. And if you see a color, you might have a taste in your mouth. It's really strange. It's a somewhat a diagnosable disorder, but very, very few people have this disorder. And Miles Davis had the disorder, according to what I read.
I'm half joking.
Wow.
I'm half joking, but is that in the DSM-4?
The DSM-5. I didn't look it up, but I would anticipate that it could be or would be.
It's don't get me wrong. It's not a psychological thing. It's a true medical thing.
Neurological thing where, let me give you an idea, where a common color is associated for numbers. A 0 is associated with, or 0 to 10. A 0, you associate black, and I go all the way through the rainbow to basically to number 9 comes out gray, and number 10, you see it in white. Yeah. Okay, think of the colors of the rainbow, and it represents the numbers that you see. It's really strange.
No wonder Robert Gradinger wrote his arrangements the way he did.
He had that same disorder, didn't he?
Oh, man.
Anyway.
Miles used to emulate the farm animal sounds on his trumpet. Mm-hmm. And so it would start to make sense. If he's out there chasing ducks around, making duck sounds with his trumpet, he's translating it to a musical note.
Yeah.
Or his mind works differently.
Exactly. Almost exactly. Yep, you're right.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to drop that in. That's pretty cool.
Oh, that's a great discussion point, though. I love that. I love that. Plus, it gave me a minute. It gave me a minute to think, because we're going to do a different episode next week. I'm going to be gone, and I'm going to let these two yahoos take over the channel for 1 week.
Yahoos!
I don't know what they're going to talk about, but we're going to skip a week in our journey. But when we do come back together, I'll let them introduce that next week. So,
I think that it's only fair to give people 2 weeks to listen to the album that we'll talk about when you return. So please.
Oh, you want me to go ahead and read it?
In 2 weeks, yeah, because we'll be at number 48. And if you start now and listen to this album for the next 2 weeks, you'll have a head start and some greatness.
Yeah. So in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about Pharoah Sanders. The album is Karma. It was released on the Impulse label on LP and CD. It was recorded in 1969. I got to tell you, I love it the weeks we turn the page and we say, never heard of this cat. Who is it? What did he do? Let's fall in to Pharoah Sanders and Karma. Holy cow. How much did he shake us up? You'll have to tune in 2 weeks to find out how much he shook us up. But I'm looking forward to listening to you guys, while I'm gone next week on vacay, hash out some of the other top 50 that we've already discussed and see what you can hash out. Dad, you missed some real bangers starting out. We introduced you to Gregory Porter, but Tubby Hayes,
Mexican
Green, Cassandra Wilson, Blue Light Till Dawn,
Sarah Vaughan, Courtney Pine,
Abby Lincoln.
So he and I will figure it out on what we do later.
Yeah.
But right now it's going to be, I think we have some ideas. It's going to be a great opportunity for he and I just to dialogue about something in general. So you'll have to hear it while you're out on your cruise.
Yep.
You'll be like, oh crap, what did they do?
Leave him for a week.
Oh man.
So 2 weeks from today, we'll all be back together again. I'm looking forward to it. Drew, why don't you roll? Go ahead.
Well, I remember with Pharoah, one of the first things that we both said is, isn't he a free jazz player?
Uh-huh.
And then when you turn the page and you realize that it's only got 2 songs on it that's 40 minutes long, you think, oh, great, here we go.
Uh-huh.
Oh, great. I'm glad we went there. So I'll tell them where they can find us. We'll end it with that.
Cool.
You can always find us on the web, unconnoisseur.com. Email us, theunconnoisseur@gmail.com. Check out Matt at TikTok, and of course us here on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in on all of the 3 podcast channels that are out there. As well, we encourage and want to see and hear from you on the comments at YouTube. We've been getting some really great feedback and comments, and we're reminded every day that we are truly unconnoisseurs. We're learning about this music and the appreciation for all of the different genres that are based inside of jazz. From hot jazz of Louis Armstrong to the free jazz and avant-garde of Peter Broadsman and John Coltrane Ascension. So continue to drop the comments below. We appreciate any knowledge that we can gain as we continue this journey. So until next week, when Dad and I tune in 2 weeks, Matt, enjoy your time while you're out and about.
All right.
And drop a comment while you're out there, Matt.
Oh, I will.
Hit subscribe, hit like, and hit the bell next to the subscribe button so that you can get notified as soon as our episodes drop. Thank y'all.
All right.